Okay, guys, we're back for part 2 of this video. This one's going to be a little bit lengthier when it comes to calculating the standard deviation. So what I want you to do right now, okay, is I want you in your notes is I make this table for me. Write down the data set, okay, and make this table. I'll pause. When we come back, you should have the table down and the data set down. Again, we're finding the standard deviation by hand right now. I will promise you the homework shouldn't get any longer than this for a data set, okay? Because it does take a little bit of time, as well as I think I only give you 3 problems on the homework, okay? So it's not like just everywhere. You just have to do 3 of them. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do, you guys, is usually in statistics, we want to see what this distribution looks like, okay? That's always an important piece, especially as like down the road. So we want to make a dot plot of this data, okay? So you can see I'm going from 2 to 9, so I can go by ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And you've already learned how to make a dot plot. I'll make one just real quick. I have an X and an X for 2. 5, I have 1X. 7, I have 1X. 8, I have 3. And 9, I have 1. And again, the dot plot isn't the biggest deal at this point because you're not going to make any decisions based off of it, but it's just always nice to see what that distribution looks like. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we want to know how many observations. That's important for us. How many, and this is just what your worksheet's going to look like today. So that's why I have it set up like this. How many observations do we have? That's N, okay? So N is equal to how many numbers, observations, how many numbers in that data set. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Again, if you're going to go back and look at your notes and you're going to say, what does N equal? Make sure you write a little note to yourself that N is equal to the number of observations we have. So how many numbers in the data set? Write a little note there for yourself. Okay, this X with a bar over it, I talked about that in part 1. That's the average. We call it X bar. So we're going to do this by hand. So what I'm going to do is I need to remember, we wrote this down. We wrote the definition down in part 1. We need to add up all the observations and then divide by how many there are. Okay, so I'm going to take out my trusty calculator right now. I'm going to add up 2. Actually, I'll take out my trusty calculator here. Oops. I'm going to add up 2, right? Plus 2, plus 5, oops, plus 7, plus 8, plus 8, plus 8, plus 9, okay? So there's my sum. So I'm going to just double check that I typed this in right. So I have 2 plus 2, 5, 7, 8, 8, 8, 9, okay? Now I'm going to divide by how many there are, and we've already established that there are 8 observations. And we're going to get a mean of 6.125. In all of your work today, I want you guys just to round to the nearest hundredth for everything, okay? Again, this one, since it truncates, it stops, we probably could just use 6.125, but I want to stay consistent with what I expect on like Schoology quizzes and homework. So when you're typing it in, it's correct. So it's not that we couldn't use 6.125. I'm just prepping you for your homework. So 6.13. I should say in regular stats, sometimes people forget how to round. Just a quick little lesson on that. Let's say I had 5.127, okay? So if I wanted to round to the nearest hundredth, which is my second decimal place, I want to look at the one right after it. If it's 5 or above, I want to round this one up, okay? So if I'm rounding up to the nearest hundredth, I would write 5.13. Let's say I wanted to round to the nearest tenth, which is right here, okay? Again, I want to look to the one right after it, so that's this number. It is not 5 or above. It's below 5. And so I don't round up. I would just keep it as 5.1. Okay, let me know if you need any more help with rounding. I'm happy to help. Okay, so we have 6.13 as our mean. The next thing it's going to say is complete the table at the right. Okay, so what I need to do right now, and I'm going to talk you through this nice and slow. This first column here is X. That represents all of your observations. Okay, so write that down on top if you need to, that it's all of your observations, all the numbers in the data set. Okay, so let's do that now. Let's fill that out. I'm going to pause to save time on the video. You pause as well, and we'll go ahead and fill that. Okay, what are we doing right now? We're completing the table. This isn't on the right. I put it on the left because of the way I like to work. It's on the right on your homework, okay? The next column right here, okay? What it's asking us to do, okay? What it's asking us to do is it's asking us to take my observation that I have minus the average, okay? So we already found that average. So what am I going to do? My first observation I have is 2. I'm going to take 2 minus my average of 6.13. When I do that, I take 2 minus 6.13 in my calculator. I get negative 4.13. Well, the nice thing about this data set is I have 2 again. So I'm not going to show my work again. I'm just going to say, oh, I have another one that's 2. So 2 minus 6.13 is negative 4.13. I'm going to do it again now with 5. So 5 minus 6.13. Well, 5 minus 6.13 is equal to negative 1.13. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to keep going down the column here. 7 minus 6.13, 8 minus 6.13. Well, that's nice because I filled out here again and again. And then 9 minus 6.13. I'm going to pause the video. You do the same and let's fill this column out. Okay, so now that we have this column filled out, check yours, see if it matches mine. Okay, we have this column filled out. Now we need to go to the next column. I don't care about this down here. You don't have to do that. Okay. All right. What this is telling us is, if you notice here, X minus X bar is what we did in this column. This wants us to take all of the answers from this second column here. Okay. All of these answers here is this. It wants us to take these answers and square them. That's what we're doing for this third column. Again, we're taking the answers from the second column and we're squaring them. Okay, so I'm going to take negative 4.13 squared, and that gives me 17.0569. Again, I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth. So I'm taking this number here, typing it in my calculator twice. These are all positive numbers. So I get 17.06 when I round to the nearest hundredth. Well, the nice thing is I have these are the same number, so these are also going to be the same number. I'm going to do it again. I have negative 1.13, so I'm going to square that. I get 1.28 when I square that. Let me show you with my calculator here just so you can see it visually. Okay, again, I'm going to take this one right here and I'm going to square it. So I'm going to take 0.87 squared, and that gives me 0.7569, so 0.76. I want to pause the video right now. I want you guys to fill out the rest. Okay, so we have all of the columns filled out. Okay, so as I said, we just filled out this column. Now in your homework, it will say part E, and you'll notice this is the same. Okay, what does that mean? What that means now is this sign here, that means sigma. That means we're going to find the sum of this. Well, what is this right here? That's what you found right here, this third column. So this right here, and write yourself a little note if you need to, This means we're going to find the sum of the third column. What did this one mean? If we needed to write a little note to ourselves, we're taking the second column and we're squaring it to get the third column. So let's just kind of talk about it in case you need to write down extra notes for yourself. The first column is all of your observations. The second column, that is taking all of your observations and subtracting the mean from it. That's what we did for the second column. The third column is the answers from your second column squared. And finally, this part right here, we're taking that third column and we're finding the sum of it. We're adding it all together. So let's pause and let's do that now. Okay, so when we added this column up, we got 54.9. Okay, we're still not at our standard deviation yet, our measure of spread. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our variance. Again, practice when I'm telling you things. If you need to write little notes on the side, do that. You're going to want to do that when you guys get to college, okay? Writing maybe little things to support your learning that you learned during the lecture that your teacher maybe just didn't write down, okay? So your variance is another measure of spread that we use to get the standard deviation. What it's telling us is we want to take our answer that we got right here because we found the sum of that third column, right? This third column right here, we found the sum. We got 54.9. We want to take that answer and we want to divide it by, because we have this fraction bar here, n minus 1. What is n minus 1? Well, n minus 1 would be 8 minus 1. Okay, again, 8 minus 1 here. 54.9 divided by 7. We're going to type that in our calculator. And we get 7.84. Again, we're going to round everything to the nearest hundredth. This is called our variance. It's another measure of spread that we use to finally get our standard deviation. So again, if you need any side notes, we're taking our sum from the third column, which we got right here, dividing it by n minus 1, and we know that n is way up here. It's the number of observations we have. People will say, will it be 7 every time? That's a question I do get sometimes. No, because the number of observations will change. Now, finally, we're at what we were waiting for, the standard deviation. How do I know what? Another way to write the standard deviation is S of x. And the standard deviation is equal to the square root of your variance, which we just found. Okay, our variance is 7.84. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the square root of that. When I put that in my calculator, 7.84, I get, and I take the square root of it, I get a standard deviation of 2.8. And there we go. Let's quick just summarize the steps in case you need to write something down, but we are done. Okay, so a quick recap on what we did. Whoops. We have our data. We make a dot plot. Was that really necessary for this? No, but you're going to see it in your homework, okay? Then what we do is we figured out, well, let's analyze what we got here. We have 8 observations, 8 numbers in our data set. We found the average. How did we find that again? Again, here, write side notes if you need to. You should have it written down from part 1, but just in case, write it down if you need to. We found that average. That was adding all of the observations up and dividing by how many there were. We got 6.13. Next, right here, we completed this table. First column was all of our observations. Second column was all of our observations, subtract, and then we subtract the mean from it, the average, 6.13. That's the answers there. Third column, we take that second column answer and we square it to get the third column answer. That is the table filled out. Next, we need to take this third column right here. Okay, that should have a bar over it. Take that third column, and what we're going to do is we're going to add it up to get 54.9. Then what we're going to do is we're going to divide that answer by n minus 1. N is the number of observations we have. When we did that, we got 7.84. Finally, to get that standard deviation, we take the square root of the variance, what you got right there when we divided by n minus 1. And that gives us our standard deviation, our average difference from the mean. Okay, you guys, you did a great job. I know this one was a little bit more labor intensive. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck on your homework.